Driving Gloves were a combination of gearheads: John the Instigator, Derek the Conservator, Will the Builder, Sean the Racer, and maybe a guest. Invite you to listen while they sit down, have a drink, and discuss cars. Subscribe to the podcast with No Driving Gloves. Time now for the ride. Hey, we're sitting here with a crowded house tonight for a change at No Driving Gloves. My little screen's got four faces on it, including my ugly mug, I guess. Who do we have out there tonight?
The bald-headed duo is here.
Well, yeah, there you go. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, it's good to be back, guys. It's been a few weeks. It's been a crazy ride, trying to wrap up the TV show, and just found out that got another car accepted into SEMA. So that will be 3 that Big Oak will have there, and it's looking like 3 or 4 from the TV show. So I could possibly have 8 cars at SEMA this year. So that's getting a little hairy.
Are all your booths going to be next to each other, or are you going to be in 4 corners of 2 different halls?
As of right now, I've got one outside in front of the brand new building. So I thought that was pretty cool, is why I took that. One in Ford's booth, one in Exalta's booth, which is right next to Ford, one in Hushmat's booth, which is not far from Exalta, and then one in the Blueprint booth, which is not far from Hushmat. So as of right now, 4 of them will actually be in Central Hall. So that's pretty good.
So that doesn't spread you that thin that way.
Mm-hmm. No, it's not too bad. We'll probably have one over in the 4-wheel drive off-road section as well. So that one's kind of off in left field, but most of them will be pretty centrally located. It's pretty lucky.
So is the show wrapped up, or you still got 1 or 2 more to finish? Or?
Yeah, we're not completely wrapped. We're slowing down a good bit. We've got a couple more to finish up, a couple more reveals to do, and then it'll be time for post-production and get this thing on a big network.
Yeah, I was going to say, when are we going to be able to see it? We've been teasing it. I think we had Courtney on just about a year ago, if I remember right.
It's been going on a year, man. COVID had really, really kicked us in the butt. Just getting parts, and then, basically Atlanta was shut down, and it's been a real struggle to get this thing finished up. But we see the finish line, and it's going to be really good, I think.
What's this COVID you speak of? I have not heard of this.
Sounds like an excuse to me.
If you hadn't heard of COVID, then you need to go back in your damn cave. Please, man.
No, well, we're supposed to forget about it now. CDC says as long as you're vaccinated, we don't need to wear masks. So
I'll be 100% honest with you. The last 2 months at Big Oak has been terrible because of COVID. We can't get anything in the door. We really hadn't felt the effects of it until the last couple of months, which it could be we're trying to get too ready to go to the interior shop, and it's all neat stuff next day, and that's been hurting us. But hey, at least we got plenty of work. We just move on to something else as the parts come in.
Okay. Should we just skip over Derek?
Yeah,
sure. Why not? I don't.
What you got?
I never talk anyway. Come on.
Have you done anything interesting? Yeah, you don't edit you.
Ouch. Dang. Man. See if I talk tonight. Do I have anything going on? No, John, nothing at all. Renovation of a restaurant at a museum, new exhibit opening up in a week. Let's see, and I love that Will has so many cars going to SEMA, and just bringing up that he has cars going to SEMA, because what I love is this week I have had 3 concours reach out to the museum and ask us to bring the cars. Correction, make that 4. I just remembered one that came in today, and I am pumped about the fact that we are going to get back out and see all our old friends at all these events again, And I mean, I'm looking at being at the Cincinnati Concourse, at Alt Park. Let's see, we're going to be at the Keeneland Concourse in Lexington, Kentucky. Our guest tonight is going to know this show because we will be at the Concours of America at St. John, at the Inn at St. John. And we're also going to be doing the Chattanooga Motor Car Festival again. So all those shows are back on, and the Corvette Museum is going to have a strong presence everywhere. And I think it's going to be a great year. I'm excited to get back out on the road and see people. And I think that's a little bit about what we're going to talk about tonight as well. But I might as well just pump a little bit of the museum while I'm at it here because, John likes to edit me so much. So, the new restaurant is opening up, soft opening really this week and next week. We're going to be doing a grand opening in June. We got a couple more big feature pieces to get into the restaurant. But beyond that, it is live now. Look up the Stingray Grill on Facebook and all the social medias. You can find it on the Corvette Museum website. And it's going to be a really, really cool place when it is fully operational and up and running. Got some really cool statement pieces in it that I've been our team has been working with Tom Peters on. And Tom Peters, of course, the former chief designer of Corvette for many, many years. And also have a little exhibit opening up called Corvette Powered. And there's not a single Corvette in it, but there's a lot of Corvette engines in it. We have some ESOs coming in. We got an ESO Grifo and an ESO Lele, and I've got a Bizzarini Strada coming in. And actually, we won't talk about one car we have coming in because Will is mad at me. So we're just going to glaze right over that car. And we also have one of the 1997 Malibu Corvette boats and a lot of other cool cars in the exhibit as well that I'm very happy to see coming in and have on exhibit for a year at the museum. So if you get a chance to get to the museum, Memorial Day weekend until the NCM Michelin Bash of 2022, it's about a year from now, we are going to have some amazing cars that all have Corvette engines in them. All right, I'm done with my rant there, John.
Nah, you were done about 5 minutes ago after we finish editing. So,
all right, cool.
So I'm glad you guys, because I don't play too much in the car world anymore. I just don't have time. I've got something cooking in my head, and I may be reaching out to certain sponsors to see if they want to do this for me. But we'll talk about that later, but it would really dive me deep into the car world again. But I'm glad Will's saying he's got cars going to SEMA and shows and getting cars ready to go out into the public. And Derek's got obviously a bucket of things to do and cars to get ready. And he didn't even mention he's taken some of his cars to concours. His personal collection has been invited to a couple of events. So, he's got that. And that's one reason, I kind of made the joke to Will, what is this COVID? And I'm kind of glad we've got it under control. We're not going to get into a COVID lecture. We're getting kind of this soft opening, working our way back into it. But man, I think when late June rolls around, July, and big percentage of the population's vaccinated, and I think the fear is set. I mean, even around the house here with 4 immune compromised people, we're getting out into public a little bit more and having fun and doing things, at least outside. And that's why I'm glad to have this guest on tonight, because he does some, gets involved a little bit into racing, actually runs, is CEO of M1 Concourse. And Tim McGrane, hopefully I said that right. I never pre-check with the guests. Me and the way I don't speak right. But Tim, did I get it right? And welcome to the show.
John, thank you. And yes, you did. You got it right. So well done.
It's nice when people from, have names from the old world that are easy to pronounce, not like me from, farther into Europe. So you're with M1 Concourse, and I've read some of the stuff that's been sent to me about you, and I don't like to read.
There was a nice video there, John. You should have watched the video.
M1 Concourse does a lot of things. Are you strictly on the show sides? And we're going to get into the shows. We're going to get into that. But I want to kind of get the feel of what you're doing with M1 Concourse. Are you into the garage condos? Are you into the track stuff? Or is it all under your umbrella?
It all falls under my umbrella. So the M1 Concourse Facility, and we're located in Pontiac, Michigan, and we sit right on Woodward Avenue, which is designated Michigan Highway 1. So that's where the M1 comes from. So we're an 87-acre property. We feature 250 privately owned garage condos, and we have a 1.5-mile track. And it's not a racetrack; it's a high-performance driving experience track. It was never designed for competition. It's 1.5 miles, 11 turns, and it's a unique facility. There are a number of private tracks around the country. Some with or without either residences or garage condos, but we all do it slightly differently. But we've got a unique property, like I say, located in Pontiac, so we're right in Motor City or Motown.
I really like the idea, and excuse me and yell at me if I'm going to say something that's offensive here, but it's almost the country club style racetrack. And not only does it provide opportunities for those that can to exercise their cars in a safe environment and have fun and basically like golfing, but with cars, not quite Top Gear type golfing with cars, but I think everybody gets the idea. And I just had a conversation with somebody this week, and we've talked about it on the shows. I think where you guys are at is leading into where petrol-powered automobiles will eventually go, and that will be operated privately on designated closed courses, as electric takes over and as self-driving takes over. It's not going to be in probably your lifetime. It's not going to be in my lifetime, but I guarantee you my girlfriend's kids will start seeing that, fortunately or unfortunately. And I just think it's really, really cutting edge if you think in that.
Well, certainly. I mean, you certainly could take the analogy that we are sort of that country club model. We've got a bit of a sort of a private identity and a public identity. The private part being, the garage condos, which are individually owned, and then for those owners, they have the opportunity to join our Motorsports club, which then gives them, access to track time each month. So where they can exercise their cars. Our 1.5-mile track was designed so normally we run in a clockwise direction, but it can actually be run counterclockwise, which is very unusual for race circuits. So it does give those members the opportunity for sort of a different experience. It's not just the sort of the same clockwise direction. But our public identity is that we do conduct a number of events and have done up to 2019. Like a lot of places around the country, we've done the Cars and Coffee events, and we were attracting 1,500 cars, last year, in 2019. But this year, we've got 4 major events, 2 of which we're producing, and 2 of which other organizations are producing. We're very much involved with. So that sort of gives us our public part of what M1 Concourse is all about.
I don't know which way I want to go. If I want to talk more about that, or I'm going to talk more about you at this point of the podcast. We touched briefly, Derek brought it up, that you have sort of an accent that doesn't quite fit in anywhere anymore. You obviously are not native to Detroit, are you?
I am not. I am a newly minted Michigan resident. So I moved out to the West Coast. I visited California in 1981, relocated from Southeast England. I grew up in Kent, England, moved out there in 1982, and for all that time have lived between either Southern and Northern California or Arizona. So assuming the CEO position at M1 Concourse, as of March of this year is first time. I visited Michigan many times, mostly for automotive reasons. Now officially a Michigan resident, and we'll get to experience Woodward Dream Cruise in person for the first time. And to your earlier comment about, will the demise of gasoline-powered cars, will they be relegated to, private tracks? Let's hope if there's at least one place that they'll be allowed, it's Woodward Avenue.
Amen to that.
I had other questions, but you took on your new role just a couple of months ago. You've lived in California, and you've obviously lived in England. Have you ever visited Detroit in, say, November through March?
Well, the answer is yes. I have been one of those many that have visited the Detroit Auto Show in January, asking myself, what am I doing here? Otherwise, it's been for what was formerly known as the Meadowbrook Concourse. When that was, it's now the Concourse of America at a different location. But, when I was with the Blackhawk Museum, we exhibited at Meadowbrook many years. So I was here in the summertime. And then for a number of years when Chrysler dominated sort of the sponsorship position of many of the classic, vintage car events around the country, we'd all be back in Auburn Hills, paying homage to the people that provided the sponsorship for the events I was involved with.
Okay, I was just wondering, because I'm sure Derek can tell you a little bit about winter in Detroit, and there's one reason I don't think I'm moving north again, even though it still snows a little bit in Birmingham.
I was going to say, John, you got to be careful. I mean, Tim, you don't know this. I mean, I worked at Henry Ford Museum, I'm sure, but yeah. I was born and raised just south of Saginaw, Michigan, a little farming town, and spent really most of my life in Michigan until I moved to Cleveland, Ohio, which is not a great upgrade from Michigan weather. Just, throwing that out there. Lake Erie is still one of the Great Lakes. And it wasn't really until a little over 4 years ago that I moved to Kentucky that I got away from really, truthfully, 4 seasons. It's like 3.5 here. But yeah, I still hold a very, very special place in my heart for Michigan and the greater Detroit area, to be honest. I love downtown, love Woodward, and I love when I get to go back as well for event. Yeah. So, and John can't say much because he grew up in the Chicago area. So,
like I said, I ran when I had the chance.
Well, we'd look at it this way. We look at it as an adventure. First of all, Detroit's a great airport, and they've got 4 direct flights a day to Arizona. So if you need to make a weekend trip, that time of year to thaw out, then that's fine. But changing extremes. Last summer I was in Arizona, and it was 115 degrees for far too many days. So it's just one extreme to another.
Yeah. 115 below.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those are the good days.
You said Arizona. If I saw somewhere in your bio correctly, you worked for Barrett-Jackson at some point. You mentioned the Blackhawk collection, but did you spend some time out there with Craig? Or
I did. Actually, I've been in Blackhawk twice, and the first time I was with Blackhawk, we were very involved with Barrett-Jackson, the president of the founder of the Blackhawk collection, Don Williams. Had a long time relationship with Tom Barrett, and then actually was probably the person instrumental in putting the Barretts and the Jacksons together, because in the early years they were actually doing separate auctions.
I was going to say that was the early 70s.
That's going back. So in my early years, I knew Brian Jackson, who unfortunately sort of passed away much too soon.
Yes.
But then I got approached to go and become involved with the Barrett-Jackson auction. So I worked with Craig for 4 years. Exciting times. It was early times. So early days of live television coverage of the auction. I think when we got there, we had 3 hours of live coverage, and this was back in the Speed Vision days. And we were selling a high percentage of cars, but we weren't selling 100%. But we
say I remember those days. I interned with Barrett-Jackson for a few weeks in the January auctions right around 98, 99, and 2000. Usually worked under Drew. So
yeah, there we go. So we found out very quickly that if you don't plan a car that potentially could sell on live TV for a world record auction, only to find out you've gone to a dog food commercial, You got to coordinate the time between live TV and the live auction because neither of those wait for anybody. But
one of the guys on the screen kind of had that happen to him.
Yeah, with that car right there.
So, but no, they were good times, and still have. I'll actually Craig, 2 or 3 times a year, and certainly have a lot of relationships, through my Barrett-Jackson years, and they were good times and fun times, and it's amazing, what Craig has done with that event. I mean, it's it's something spectacular. You look at the tented facility. I think from one end to the other, it's probably close to a mile. Certainly, pre-COVID times, and certainly an amazing event. And then obviously all the other events that have grown up around the Phoenix area and the Scottsdale area because of it.
We'll play back into the early 80s again. You said you went to California. Now, was that a vacation the first time you traveled, or was there an ulterior motive? I'm trying to figure out what was the enticement that got you to come here from England and then stay for 40 years?
So it just finished college, and a friend of mine, we decided we're going to go on a 3-week trip. And we were originally planning to go to Florida because our friends the year before had gone to Florida. And at the last minute, we decided to go to California. And we had this plan. We were going to land in Los Angeles, and we were going to do the San Diego, Las Vegas, San Francisco, back to Los Angeles sort of circle. And, we got such a good deal back in those days. There was probably the pioneer of discount flights, Freddie Laker. So Laker Airlines had this deal. You got for £119, you got your return flight, a rental car for 3 weeks, and your first night hotel. What you don't look at is what time you land in LAX. So the landing fees at 2:00 in the morning are significantly less than during the daytime hours. So you're on a flight, you land at 2:00, and now you're trying to find your hotel in Inglewood in the early 80s. So when we eventually got there, got stopped by the police for making an illegal left turn. So we decided, let's just find somewhere quick. I looked at the map, and Palm Springs just seemed to be a name that we'd heard before. So this was October. We headed out to Palm Springs, checked into a hotel. And the first night we went out and we found this nightclub. We got there much too early, but we stayed and we met girls. So the whole 3-week plan went out the window. We stayed there for a week. We did a day trip to San Diego, a day and a half trip up to San Francisco, of which I had to make a detour and stop by and see Laguna Seca because I'd read about that place when I was a kid in car magazines. And my friend was not a car person, and he couldn't understand why we were going completely out of our way to see sort of an old racetrack. And went back to Palm Springs. But so that my point of reference was, October with Palm Springs, and I'm going back to England in October going, do I really want to do this, or do I want to go and live in the States? So I got to the end of the year, and I had to either give it a try, either get it out of my system or see if it worked. And it worked.
So we can blame it all on a couple of girls when it really comes down to it.
That's exactly it.
California girls.
I think we all have that story, and a girl made me do it. And you said Laguna Seca, and that's at some point you ended up working there too, didn't you?
I did. I've been very fortunate. I had sort of a long relationship with that facility. First of all, again, as a kid reading about the events, but in the early 80s, I started in the classic car auction world with a company based in Los Angeles called Rick Cole Auctions.
I remember Rick Cole.
Yeah, so and Rick was the first person to do an auction in Monterey. He was an avid vintage racer. He raced at Steve Earle's Monterey Historics and was doing auctions predominantly in Southern California. And the sports and race car world was beginning to blossom. And he went to Steve and said about doing an auction at the track. And Steve, bless him, would have nothing to do with such a commercial enterprise. So Rick found a venue downtown, and he did a single Friday night auction of 85 cars, basically going into the unknown, and did really well the first year. And then I started working with him for the third year. And then 1988, we had the feature car was a Ferrari 250p, and it was coming up for sale. And the month before, Enzo Ferrari had passed away. And this 250p sold for, at the time, was probably the third or fourth highest car that sold at public auction. So it sort of put the auction on the map. And then the second year, we were getting ready to do another, auction of the Friday evening, and another auction company was looking to do an auction in town, and they wanted to hire the same auctioneers. And auctioneers, being auctioneers, will work for anybody for money. So they came to us and said, well, why don't you do 2 nights auction and you can pay us? So that's how we ended up doing 2 nights in 1989. And we just had a barn burner of a sale. And that put the radar screen on the Monterey Peninsula. And the following year, the English Christie's came in at Pebble Beach. And then it's just, it just grew from there.
So you actually got to experience when it was just vintage racing and there was none of the hoopla and the, hundred thousands of people and, the spectacle that I guess August has become out there.
I did. I can remember you could get there on a Friday afternoon about 6:00. You could leave on a Sunday afternoon about 6:00. You could attend every event and probably have every meal sitting down and not miss anything. Those days have long gone. And I believe me, I'm a number one fan of Pebble Beach and all things going up there. But it was because of my early days at Rick Cole that I had started a relationship with Laguna Seca, obviously because of the historics at that time. You went to the auction Friday night, the races on Saturday, the concours on Sunday, and that was it. There was a few other small gatherings. So we did that, and I started the relationship with the people at Laguna Seca. Rick in the early 90s actually started an IndyCar team with a chap from the racing world called Jim Hayhoe. An IndyCar was predominantly featured at Laguna Seca at the time. So then we worked closely with the marketing and PR people, a part of Rick's IndyCar team, and kept a relationship through the time that Scott Atherton took over and ran it for many years, and then Scott went on to work for Penske and then run American Le Mans Series and IMSA, and then some subsequent people. And then not too long ago, I got called to see if I would take the position of CEO of Laguna Seca, which I did. There were some challenges going on down there, and I certainly was very aware of them. And I felt we could make a difference. It's a legacy track, and it is Laguna Seca. And if there's any worthy cause, it was getting that back on right. But the county had other plans, and so onward and upward.
I was going to say it had a few rough years there with ownership and that, and I don't think they're out of it yet. It's been a little bit since I read an article, but I'm going to be honest. I say a lot of times that I think we all kind of say we were born a decade too late, and I think I was born a decade too late because one, I would have loved to experience the car scene the way you did in California. I like that intimacy. That's why I used to enjoy Amelia Island so much before it's become the massive event it has now grown into. And they're one of my favorite movies of all time from 1955. So don't get the name confused. It's called The Fast and the Furious. And it's about a guy that broke out of jail and he stumbles across it's like the first or second historic races in Monterey. Being 1955 or so. So you got a lot of footage. They actually filmed the movie in conjunction with the racing, and you got to see the people and the cars. Yeah. And there was a woman driving her Jaguar, and that's, the car he ended up with. And it's kind of a fun movie. It's nothing like the Paul Walker stuff, but
John, you got to fanboy down a minute, okay? You got to fanboy down.
But, okay.
I'm going to back John up. It's a great movie if you like the Pebble Beach historics.
You know what I really want to hear about? I want to hear about this Woodward Dream Show. That's what I want to hear about.
That's quite a segue. Pebble Beach races from the 50s to Woodward Dream Show.
Sorry I had to butt in, but I really want to know about this show. It's got me really interested, and I'm sitting here going,
Right.
draw in.
Let's talk about Woodward Dream Show. But I have seen that footage, and it is great. Obviously, somebody has a long association with Pebble Beach, and certainly seeing that early footage is fun to watch. But so our Woodward Dream Show. So It was originally intended to do to launch last year, and obviously, like a lot of events, it didn't happen. So, what the show is, it's to complement Woodward Dream Cruise. I mean, the Dream Cruise gets tens of thousands of cars and hundreds of thousands of people. But what we felt was that an opportunity, because of where M1 Concourse is located and the facility that we have, that if we could put on an event where we could invite some of those legacy muscle cars and hot rods that you probably wouldn't see on the public roads these days, either because of their historical significance, their value, or just their owners say, I just don't want to be out. That car means too much to me. But they still want to share it with people. They don't want to cocoon it away. So because we can create a controlled environment, we're going to put the show on and get about, sort of 250 again, significant, custom cars, hot rods, muscle cars, complement, what Woodward is all about. We had a press conference early this week, and we were fortunate to get, two legacy cars from Woodward history. A friend of mine, a gentleman by the name of Harold Sullivan, who's been a long-time Mopar collector, has a car called Silver Bullet 67 GTX that was also generally referred to as the king of Woodward because, from what I understand, it was never beaten. So he's going to bring his cars, some of his other Mopars out. And there's another car, 70 Challenger, that's referred to as the Black Ghost. And it was actually owned by a Detroit police officer. But every weekend, not every weekend, but occasionally he would go out and he ordered it with all the options. I mean, he checked off, every power option you could have. So again, for the 70s, it probably could beat everything, and it would come out, it would beat people, and then it would disappear for weeks. And this sort of the whole Black Ghost thing came about. But it turned out he was a Detroit police officer, and it's been in the same family. His son now has it. Hasn't been restored. It's untouched, and it's actually one of the historical vehicle association in the registry. But those are the type of cars that we're looking to attract, and again, create an event for fans and spectators to come and see, and also the owners to share their cars.
That's awesome. I love seeing historic cars that have a meaning, especially to a specific area like that. That's pretty kick-ass. But like in my industry, the custom car world, the hot rod industry, is that going to be accepted too? So like a car that I've built that, is a SEMA debut car or a Riddler car or something like that, is that going to be accepted and be able to be there as well?
Certainly. You can't do an event in Detroit and not accept a Riddler car.
Right.
I mean, that's no, absolutely. We're going to have certainly sort of unique cars. So we would absolutely look for, for those special cars. Again, cars that you're probably not going to see on the street, but are certainly, great cars, whether they're historical or they're contemporary. So, whether it's America's Most Beautiful Roadster winner, a Riddler car, or anything spectacular in between. I go to SEMA on a regular basis, and some of the cars you see there are wonderful. When I was at Barrett-Jackson, we were able to have some great cars across the block. So again, we're going to put together a unique show, and ideally, it's the opportunity for cars to be shown. That you wouldn't see on Woodward Avenue, but are very much part of what that Woodward Avenue culture is all about. And
I noticed one thing you said that y'all would be giving awards. Can you elaborate on that a little bit? I know there was several different classes, and what are the awards going to be? How are you going to give them out? What are the different classes? Stuff like that.
So, as somebody that's been involved with events for many, many years and judged very few times, I'm going to leave that to the judging team.
Okay.
Because in a 6-car class, it's a quick way to make 5 people not like you at the end of the day. So, so I leave the judging duties to our judging team. But, it's somewhat going to be selective. It's certainly not going to be sort of the Concours level. But, certainly one that, when the participants come, they're going to recognize, either the car, its history, the craftsmanship, or whatever.
Nice. I'm sure Derek's got a few questions. That pretty well
And obviously, given that we're in Detroit, and the number of car designers that are in this area, we certainly have a number of those that are going to come and probably as part of a sort of a judging team, and they'll come up with some of their own awards that they think are fitting.
Well, I've won awards all over the place. I mean, grade 8s in Detroit, but my favorite award that I've ever won was a General Motors Design Award at SEMA. So, get those designers involved and get them to come out there and pick some hot rods. That'd be pretty cool.
All right. Well done. So, Derek, you were doing some animation there.
Yeah.
Oh, just giving Will a hard time, Mr. I've won some awards in my time. No, but Will, I mean, and I think one of the coolest awards Will has won is the one he brought up with was a GM design award for a Chevrolet pickup he did. And he did a killer job on the truck. And
look at that. That's a sweet one.
Yeah.
It's like a 63 Vet.
It's heavy. I don't like it very much.
I'm almost wondering if Tom didn't design that one. I got to ask him. He's in town tomorrow. I'll ask him tomorrow. And Tim, I don't know if I know I've said Tom's name a few times. I'm sure you know Tom Peters, or at least know of Tom Peters.
I do know of him, yes.
Yes. Tom, of course, retired chief designer for Corvette and Camaro. Did a time in the truck studio, running that. But Tom actually is a consulting curator at the museum now. We actually brought him on staff, and he comes down regularly and works with myself and my team on various renovation projects and exhibits we're doing at the museum. So he's been a great asset since he started at the beginning of this year, and just all around great guy to get to know and chat with. And I'm sure he'll show up at events at the at the M1 if he's around, because he loves it and he's got some great cars to show off. I mean, he's done some really cool things, him and his wife both. So been paying attention to the M1 Concourse, kind of since the announcement, stuff like that. Of course, my ties back to Detroit, with having been at Henry Ford Museum for 8.5 years. I was in the conservation department taking care of the transportation collections there. I'm almost certain you and I have probably met at some show somewhere along the way, and just don't realize it. But I've been thrilled to see something like this coming into Detroit. One of the coolest things I think Detroit has going is the revitalization efforts that are going on there. And I mean, I think the way to revitalize Detroit is to play off that automotive heritage and everything that is automotive there, and bring that back to the forefront in Detroit, because it was lost for a while. It just was. And so I think it's awesome that you guys are doing that. I'd love to hear from you just kind of what, your team and your folks there, hope to do and hope to kind of how you guys hope to be kind of help out in this idea of kind of revitalizing Detroit and bringing this automotive legacy even more into the forefront. Cause I'm sure that's on all of your team's mind and what you're doing there.
It is, one, I've sort of enjoyed automotive history, sort of all of my career and even before that. So I've been very fortunate to be in the world that I've been in. But being in this position and being at a location, firstly, we're at a piece of property. Its name is M1 Concourse, but generally it's referred to as the Triangle, and it's got automotive heritage going back to the early 1900s. I think the first vehicle that was built on the property about 1903 was the Rapid Motor Car Company, and then obviously for many years it was a sort of a GMC assembly plant. So there's a lot of automotive history in the ground there. But as part of what we're doing is, one of the things is sort of the events that we're doing. Again, the private side of our world is good, but our opportunity to just be involved with the car culture. So, we're starting off in August. We have 2 back-to-back events. The first event is put on by the Motor Trend Group, and they call it Roadkill Nights. And they've actually got permission to close down part of Woodward Avenue. And along with the Dodge brand, they actually do drag racing on Woodward Avenue, right in front of the Concourse facility. So obviously they take over a lot of our property. And that focuses on certainly sort of the heritage of racing or stoplight racing on Woodward Avenue. The following weekend, we have as we talked about briefly, our Woodward Dream Show, which is the same weekend as Woodward Dream Cruise. And I think one of the things that M1 Concourse done has brought more awareness up to the Pontiac end of Woodward Avenue. I mean, for the longest time, Pontiac with the closing of a lot of the plants up there, went through a time where I suspect, people got to a certain point of Woodward Avenue and maybe turned around at Bloomfield Hills. And now we want to give them a reason to come all the way up and do the loop and come back around or even stay up there. And then in September, because of COVID and because the auto shows or any large event that was held inside was canceled, there was no Detroit Auto Show in last year, and there was no traditional Detroit Auto Show this year. But what we've been able to do is we've now become the host property of an event that's called Motorbella. It's put on by the Detroit Auto Dealers Association, who do the Detroit Auto Show. It's going to be a transitional event for them. So they're going to bring their manufactured displays and their tier 1 and tier 2 suppliers and going to create, what will be an auto show in Detroit for 2021. But it allows also, because of our track, they're going to use, our track can be split into two. So part of the track will be part of the static display venue. But on our North Circuit, as we refer to it, it's going to allow them to do demonstration drives, with OEMs. So hopefully, that will give them the opportunity to bring, some of the luxury brands, back to a show, because there's certainly, I think, whether it was New York, Los Angeles, or Detroit, some of the luxury brands were going off and doing their own thing because the traditional auto show platform was not something that was working for them. So that's exciting for us. And then following that, the next weekend, we have our American Speed Festival, which is a new format event that we're doing. It's not a competitive race wheel to wheel, but it's going to be sort of time trials. So cars are going to go out. We've got 6 classes of cars, IndyCar, Can-Am, historic NASCAR, endurance cars. We got a feature class because we're in Pontiac. I've told our team, whatever we do, we always have to have a Pontiac class. And the cars are going to go out one at a time, either a time trial or for those maybe historic cars, I'll just do demonstration laps. But it will give us the opportunity to get cars out on the track that, again, probably would, not go out on a track if it was a competitive situation, either, again, because of their historical nature. One of the challenges when I was at Laguna Seca for our Monterey Historic, that each year as the values of the car increased, the owners were more and more reluctant for them to go out in a competitive environment, even though it was, supposed to be sort of gentleman racing. Competition is competition. So this is how we see this format. This year, we have inaugural year. We have our Master of Motorsports honoree. It's going to be the legendary and the great Jim Hall of Chaparral fame. So Jim's coming out. At the moment, we've got confirmation that two of the great Chaparral cars are going to come out from the Midland Museum. And they'll actually be demonstrated on the track by his grandson. So that's going to be, part of this new event that we're doing. But it's also, the theme is past, present, and future. So we're also looking out for, the new hybrid cars, any of the supercars that we can, cater to the generation that appeals to now. I think, Derek, like you, I'm passionate for pre-war cars, but we also have to represent, all the generational interests, whether it is the turn of the century cars or today's, latest either hybrids, or super exotic cars. So we've got a lot going on. And then another thing, we're fortunate, just before our American Speed Festival event, this year, the Motorsports Hall of Fame of America, which is currently located down in Daytona Beach at the Speedway there. It used to be located in Detroit. It moved down there about 7 years ago. But they haven't been able to do their annual Hall of Fame dinners. So they'd heard about our event. They'd heard about our new event center. So on the Monday, they're going to do the 2020 inductee gala. And on the Wednesday night, they're going to do the 2021 inductee gala. And I understand on the Tuesday, both those groups are going to get together and have a reception at the Henry Ford with the new Driven to Win exhibit.
That is fantastic. Now, you brought up the fact that, I think, our personal passions, it seems, line up with the pre-war era. Any hopes of seeing something along the lines of the Goodwood revival ever happening at the M1 Concourse? Something all early stuff, maybe like that great head-to-head of all the Bentleys that happened just recently.
Well, that was wonderful, and some of those things are things that only Goodwood can do. But it would be nice, and I've got some friends and associates that take the early cars. I think we've got to establish the event first. Right at the moment, for most people, it's a circuit that nobody's driven on. From a point of view that would compete in an event like this. But our hope is that we can, and then each year we'll come up with 2 or 3 themes, and we certainly want to get some of the early cars out there, so they can do those laps. And but Woodward does it so great. That Bentley race was spectacular. And then they have the big Edwardian aero engine monsters, which are wonderful to see driven. Which can be driven on the Goodwood circuit in anger. Those big beasts.
As I say, it's a passion of mine. Obviously, I've worked the spectrum of the automotive industry, I guess, on the museum side, because I've been fortunate enough to actually drive the replica of the 1770 Cugnot that the Surf family built down in Tampa Bay, all the way up to, I have the chance to drive, C8 Corvettes on track. So I've kind of spanned that entirety of the automotive history. There's just, to me, something about driving the early cars. It's truly a driving experience. I've got teens, 20s, 30s era stuff, and there's nothing like it. And I love having friends get in it and give them a ride, even in something like my 1919. I've got a Chevrolet 490 Touring, and scare the crap out of them because I drive it like it's meant to be driven. And, even though you're going 45 mile an hour or whatever, but in an early car like that, for somebody that doesn't ever ride in them, and you go into a turn at speed, they get a little worried that something's going to happen. And it's kind of fun to scare them a little bit. And, narrow tires, you slide a little bit around the turn and hey, you're good. But yeah, it's awesome. Obviously we mentioned that obviously the NCM has a motorsports park, the National Corvette Museum Motorsports Park here in Bowling Green. And, we get some of the SCCA stuff running, and much like, you guys, we're not a full on spectator racetrack. It's testing. It's, small series. I think the biggest series that we run here is the Optima battery series that's actually televised, but there's not spectators. So, there's always been some hope, I guess, in my heart that maybe in the future, we could do some kind of event where we get a little more, across the board vehicles coming in and doing even some demonstration laps. What I love is being able to take some of the cars from the museum over, and if there's nothing going on the track during the week, on a Tuesday or something, I can usually call the track and say, hey, we've got 3 cars that we need to run that we're taking to events this year. And they're like, yeah, come do laps. And we get to go out and do it. And it's awesome to, I'm a big, and I know you worked at the Blackhawk, and I'm one of the I was trained in objects conservation, obviously at Henry Ford. But I'm a big supporter of, the fact that, our collection vehicles need to be operated, and not in the typical, well, you got to run a car or it's bad. Well, no, there's ways to properly do it and properly maintain them and make sure they're safe. But it's all part of, in my opinion, as museums, we educate, and, the part of the educational experience and just the visceral experience of any machine is it operating and actually being able to show people how those things ran and what they sounded like and the smell and the feel and just everything behind it. And I think that's one of the great things about these, tracks and things that are popping up, because, as John said at the beginning, and we've talked about it on the show, someday in the future, it's probably going to be the only place these cars are seen running and being able to be heard, and not on the road, which is unfortunate. But I just think places like this are going to be just awesome for not only owners, but also just people who want to see these cars run and understand what what the meaning of these was back in the day and what it is today. So I love to see stuff like this.
Yeah, it is going to be interesting to see how, as in the years to come, how the, I'm going to call it the car, the automobile. I hate to think at one time we're going to refer to them as mobility devices. That would be a shame, how they change. But, I look at, kids I know, and you put them in a car that's got, wind up windows and 3 pedals, and they go, what's all this?
The what is it? The millennial anti-theft device is a clutch. Isn't that what the joke is? Yeah.
I was going to say, just a plug because of the Barber Museum, but if you didn't know that Lotus is going to have the Ajiva in Utah in beginning of September. So maybe you want to drive over to Lotus, because I believe their head home or North American offices are in Detroit now. See if they can bring that out to your event too, since it's very cutting edge electric supercar.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Actually, we have got a dialogue going with them about trying to do something. Yeah, I think they're located in Plymouth.
I just thought I'd throw that out, but we've talked about the show. We've talked about what's going on there. I love the idea of the show, because in one of the bios I got about you, or one pagers, it talked about the event. You go to Woodward Dream Cruise, you get to see the car for 10 or 15 seconds. You go to your event, it's going to be there, not going to be able to hear it run, but you're going to be able to see it. And I'd rather look good than feel good, I guess. So I'd rather look at it than hear it run. Can you tell me when's your event going on? Because I believe it's in August, and obviously August is a very hectic car month. And where do we go to buy tickets or learn more about the event?
So the dates of the event are August the 19th through the 21st. It's the Woodward Dream Show. So our website address is woodwarddreamshow.com, or you can go to the M1 Concourse website, and then takes you a link from there. So again, August 19th through 20th.
I'll warn you, if you go to the M1 Concourse website, you'll start shopping garage condos.
Yes, you will. I've already done it.
This is why I'm avoiding the website.
So I'm only about an hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes from Atlanta Motorsports Park, which is, kind of a similar setup of what you guys have. And we actually had we done some filming out there last week, so that's a nice facility. When I was looking at you got your guys' website, I was like, man, that's it's real similar to Atlanta.
So one of the things, Derek, we're looking to do is this year, obviously, our American Speed Festival is going to honor Jim Hall and the Chaparrals, and then for future years, we're going to look at sort of milestone anniversaries, either in the the automotive space or different manufacturers, and obviously Corvette have an anniversary coming up in a couple of years, and we're going to work on trying to do something, especially given that the very early Corvettes are actually produced in Flint, Michigan. So we're going to work on something with that.
Feel free to reach out to me at the Corvette Museum, and I will be happy to be involved in some way. We've got some great examples of the cars.
We'll start planning ahead, and each year again coming up with a sort of a theme or some type of anniversary to recognize, much like the other major events to do. But again, just in our own way, because of the nature of the event, we can potentially get cars to run that you may see at a concours, but again, it's in a static environment. Or now you wouldn't see. They used to be on the racetrack, but they aren't anymore. Again, because people are concerned about the cars being damaged.
Well, and I mean, just a crazy idea here, but a big event like that sounds like it might need a podcast to be, live on site and do some some podcasting from it. I mean, I don't know who might want to do that. It's just an idea that I thought we'd throw out.
There we go. We'll have a brand new event center at the end of the year. I'm sure we can find a place there.
I was going to say, I know a couple podcasters in California I'll reach out to and see if they can. I want to say this has been a great conversation. We got a lot about you in the beginning, and obviously we spent the last half of the show talking about your events. And, I knew Will would jump onto this one just because Woodward was involved.
Well, and a show where hot rods are highlighted and, on show and people can see them and read about who built them and, it maybe win an award from GM. Oh, sorry.
Not winning customers, not winning awards. The awards are nice, but bringing new customers in the door, that's what it's all about.
I am not a hot rod guy. Will knows that. But what's cool about a hot rod show is there's not two cars identical. I mean, you can go to Pebble and you can see all 22, 23 Ferrari GTOs, and it's $1 billion worth of cars, but they're all the same car. And it kind of, to me, always gets boring. No offense, Derek. It's kind of like going to Bloomington Golds. You can only look at so many Corvettes. But going and seeing what people have built with individually with their creative minds and that's the appeal of street rods to me. Somebody who, doesn't get them, I get them on that aspect. And your show sounds exciting.
Hey, wait a second. I recently bought a hot rod or a custom car. So, I mean, it's the only one in the world. So you got to give me some props there. Okay.
No, I'm not going to. Let's start.
It goes 0 to 60 in a minute.
I was kind of thinking it's got the same displacement as one cylinder.
Yeah.
But we started the show picking on each other. Let's not finish Tim's show with us doing that.
That's what this show is about. I'm surprised Tim hasn't just gotten in on it. He's on
here. I'm in a t-shirt. He's in a nice tie and very prim and proper. And
yeah, at least I have a proper button down shirt on here. I didn't wear the tie today, but I do have one last question for Tim. And I did not read in your bio. I know you worked at Blackhawk. I didn't catch exactly what you did at Blackhawk in the times you were there. I may have glanced over it. I was trying to read more about the M1 project and everything like that. But because I always get asked it because I work in museums. It happened at Henry Ford, it happened at the Crawford, and it happens at the Corvette Museum. But what was your favorite car at the Blackhawk?
That's always a challenge, isn't it? It's like children. Which one's your favorite one? And you can say, well, the last one you took out that drove properly, and which one do you don't like is the one that played up when it wasn't supposed to. At Blackhawk, and I had sort of two stints at Blackhawk. There's two sides of Blackhawk. Most recently, I was the executive director of the Blackhawk Museum, which has had some of the greatest cars, come through there. And then in the 90s, I was with the Blackhawk Collection, which is the company that Don Williams founded, that deals in either pre-war classics or one of a kind, or sports and European cars from the 50s. So I got very spoiled with the range of cars we had there. I would say, probably the one car that you gravitated towards the most was the Hispano-Suiza Tulipwood. The 1924. I mean, just a spectacular car. Built by sort of the Dubonnet race in the Targa Floria. But it looks stunning, and it's so striking because it's got that wood finish to it with the copper nails. But there were so many other great cars. I mean, for one time we had a Royale on display. Obviously the Henry Ford have got their Park. It's just the Park Ward one that's at the Henry Ford. Isn't it?
No, the Weinberger Cabriolet.
Oh, okay.
I was actually involved in the last time it operated at Meadowbrook. I was myself and Malcolm Collum were the two that got it running.
Okay, so I've been fortunate to sort of drive one and go for a ride in another one, but then we had the Alfa Romeo back cars for the longest time, and those, as much as they're 3 cars, hopefully they'll never part company, and it's a sheer styling exercise and an automotive masterpiece. I think they are right up there. So
I had to Google it all and remind myself what all the cars looked like there. It's just it's such a stunning collection. I mean, it's just fantastic.
Well, I mean, it's great, but I look at our tastes change. I mean, I look at one of the things I think we all talk about is how can we get younger generations into cars, and I'm sure some people look at young kids and go, what do they like those for? I mean, I look at the cars that I liked when I was a kid, and it's certainly changed dramatically, and that's because of the what you get exposed to. My early passion was custom cars. We would go up to a part of London called Chelsea, and they would have, the cruise along the King's Road. A friend of mine had a customized Ford Popular, and then other guys had, Mach 1 Mustangs and things like that. So, the custom car world was certainly early in my life, along with the racing world, living near a racetrack where I'd go out, most weekends.
I think we're right at that hour mark. And as I was saying earlier, it's been a fascinating conversation, learning your past, learning your present, and discussing the future. I've had a great time. Maybe we'll figure out. I'm pretty sure Will's going to try to figure out how to get up there. But
be able to do it this year, but we're finishing up a 61 Impala that is going to debut at SEMA. That's a pretty special build that the owner is actually originally from the Detroit area. So that's the car I'm thinking about for 2022. I've never been to the Woodward Dream Cruise. It's kind of a bucket list thing. So I might as well do it right the first time and be a part of the Woodward Dream Show and enjoy those alcoholic beverages and gourmet burgers and everything else that y'all are going to provide for being a part of the show. So that's what I'm thinking right there.
Well, there we go. Well, I'll look out for you when I'm at SEMA at the end of the year.
That'd be awesome. Look me up. I'll probably be all over the place, but maybe we'll run across each other.
There we go. All right. Well, gentlemen, I've really enjoyed this. Thank you very much for the opportunity. We always like to sort of, tell the world about what we've got going at M1 Concourse. So thank you.
And thank you.
No, thank you.
Thank you for listening, and remember to look us up at nodrivinggloves.com. There you can find back episodes, links to products we recommend, and links to all of our social media. Be sure to tell a friend about us. No Driving Gloves is edited and produced by J. Lewis Productions.